Hi guys, welcome to the Crumb Cake Kitchen. Today I'm doing a detailed tutorial on how to crumb coat and smooth ice a cake. Since this is a cake for a customer, I'll be making a double barrel cake today. The first thing you need to do when you're ready to cover your cake in buttercream is cut the layers to the desired height. Since I don't want to make this cake too tall, I've chosen to cut my layers to 1.25 inches. This makes a solid 4 inches on both tiers. I used to cut my cake layers by hand with a large knife, but a while ago I purchased this egg-based single-blade leveling knife. It's one of the best purchases I've ever made for my kitchen. My cake layers come out perfectly level, but be careful, this knife is seriously sharp and should only be used by someone who knows how to use it properly. Once you've adjusted your cut height, place your cake in front of the egg bay knife and use your hand to hold the cake in place. Don't push down on the cake at all or you'll make the layers uneven and risk cutting your hand. A gentle seesaw motion cuts right through the cake with little effort on my part. Now that your cake layers are cut, it's time for the crumb coat. I use a double-sided tape to stick my cake board to the cake drum. This way it won't move around on me while I'm icing the cake. I press down firmly on the cake board and it's good to go. I like to put the cake on the cake drum from the start to save on dishes and extra steps. As long as your cake drum is easy to wipe off, you shouldn't have any issues with this. Put a thin layer of buttercream on the cake board and set your first layer on top. Take the time to center it on the cake board now. Since I'll be adding a lemon curd to this cake, I'm building a dam with the outer ring of buttercream to prevent the curd from escaping the sides. Add the filling in the middle and spread it around so it's even or slightly under the height of the buttercream border. This is an important step you don't want to skip. If I wasn't using a filling in this cake, I would simply fill the top in with buttercream and make sure it's nice and level before adding the next layer. Add your second layer, line it up with the first, and repeat the same process again by adding the buttercream dam and filling. Continue this process until you have all your layers in place. Since I'm building a double barrel cake, I'm going to add 3 layers and then some dowels to support the top tier. I often check for level along the way. I'm adding a thick layer of buttercream on top before I add the dowels, so I can cut the dowels to the proper height. If you were only adding one more layer of cake, you would not require dowels. Add a thin layer of buttercream around the cake. Try not to drag your spatula against the cake, but rather push the buttercream onto the cake to seal in the crumbs. This coat is not intended to be thick, but it's so important to keep your final coat of buttercream free of crumbs. I'm using bubble tea straws as dowels in my cake. I buy them on Amazon and they're easy to work with. Since this is only a small cake, I've chosen to use 3 dowels in the bottom tier. Push the dowels down to the very bottom of the cake, but make sure they aren't too close to the edge. I'm using a food-safe marker by Chef Master to mark the height of my buttercream against the dowels. Pull the dowels up a little and cut them at the line you made. Now push them back down to the bottom. The dowels should all be the same height or your cake may not sit properly. Cut a cake board slightly smaller than the cake, so it's hidden within the cake. Now add some buttercream to the board and continue to add your layers, just like before, building a dam and adding the filling if you choose to. At this point, my cake looks a little lopsided, but it will straighten out as I go. I'm adding a wooden center dowel to the cake from the top to the bottom for additional support. I'll measure the height of the cake and cut it just under that height so I can push it down far enough not to be seen from the top. Now that my center dowel is in place, I'll take my bench scraper and do a few passes on the cake to leave just a thin layer of buttercream for now. Place the cake in the fridge for 15 minutes or freezer for 5 minutes to firm up before adding your second layer of buttercream. Take your chilled cake out of the fridge or freezer and put it on the turntable. Now I'm adding my second layer of buttercream. This is rarely my final layer, as I often end up touching up small areas that aren't as smooth as I'd like. Put a good coat of buttercream on the cake. Remember, you're scraping a lot away after, so don't be scared to add more. I use an offset spatula on the top of the cake to make a nice level surface. This will be adjusted more later. When it looks about even, I run my bench scraper around the cake several times to smooth it out and even out the thickness. I remove the extra buttercream from my bench scraper after every pass. A nice clean bench scraper makes a huge difference when smoothing your cake. Since the buttercream is quite firm now, use an offset spatula to fill in any small gaps. I use a large bench scraper on the top of my cake to smooth the surface. I like to warm it under hot water and completely dry it before this step. The warm scraper makes a super smooth finish. Get down to eye level so you can see what you're doing. Starting just inside the top edge, pull your bench scraper toward you, finishing just before you reach the other side. Turn the cake a little and repeat this process all the way around until you have a nice smooth surface. It takes a while to learn to achieve straight, smooth cakes with sharp edges, so don't get discouraged. I used to use acrylic discs all the time for this, but with practice I got better and better, and now this is the technique I prefer. The cold buttercream underneath really helps make a sharp edge. Use your offset spatula to pick up any stray bits and perfect the edge. Wipe your spatula after each pass. If you'd like to see more detailed tutorials like this one, please subscribe and click on the bell for future notifications. If you have an idea for a tutorial you'd like to see, mention it in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching.